Hey there and welcome back to Broken Arrow. I'm recording this video as it is still in the April work in progress version. Yes, this video is coming out in May, I know that, but I still had access when I was recording the video. Things will be subject to change regarding these decks, so take this thing with a grain of salt. Take it as a bit more of inspiration for how you could potentially build one of these Russian mechanized decks, because you do have some options. Looking at what the Russian mechanized have. We have a notable lack of helicopters. That is potentially going to be a problem. You have some pretty high infantry, or at least a lot of availability. You got very low recon. I see this potentially becoming a problem. So it is going to be up to you as a player to find the best combination for this deck, which of course will vary with playstyles. Now you can just go over and see which one of these combinations you might like, or you can go back to the Arsenal tab and go into the hangar. And I find this lately to be an easier way. I'm going to select Russia and Mechanized. And you can see what I have per category. So, Recon, very light. Rozvedka, Snipery, and a BRM 1K. That's it. Infantry, looks to be alright. We have Motostrelki for line infantry, we have AGS for suppressing other infantry, we have the ATGM options here, we got short range anti-tank, and we have the Oknometchiki, which are capable of going after infantry, but also vehicles. These things are incendiary, they are interestingly top attack weapons, and they can very quickly eliminate infantry. You can also adjust these for the use of the Schmel thermobarics. Vampires, short range anti-tank. Vehicles, we're doing okay. We got the T-72B3, and with that, especially with some armor upgrades, you can have a very respectable tank. It is 295 points. It'll not fully stand up to a maxed out Abrams, but hey, it's a start. Supports, you got some pretty decent options. We have anti-air Tunguskas, we got Strelas, we got mortar, you got a couple of artillery options in the form of the Tulpen or the Malka, and for AA you also have the longer range Buk, which of course, yes, you can increase to Buk 3, giving you a bit more range. Helicopters, again, notably absent, and air power is really not much. You got the Su-27SM, which you can load out in all sorts of different ways. You can have them as AA birds, you can have them as smart cluster bombers. They have quite a few options as to how you can kit them out, and you can also make a sort of hybrid, if you will. A couple of short-range AA missiles, maybe some smart clusters over there, maybe a medium-range AA, and now you got a fairly decent multi-role aircraft. But what would be a good fit? Starting with airborne. If you go airborne, you're suddenly getting a lot more options, especially when it comes to reconnaissance. And I find recon to be a very important element of this game. So this, for me, in recon tab is a pretty good option. Infantry-wise, we're getting some additional options, which aren't that good of an addition, I'd say, because we already got most of these capabilities covered. Vehicles-wise, you're getting pretty much the same. You got a couple of BMPs from the Mechanized Infantry, and you're getting some BMDs from the Airborne. You're also getting the Sprut, which is pretty decent. The problem that I have is it doesn't typically last for very long, especially not when it's fighting another armored vehicle, i.e. a tank, although against a mechanized unit like a Bradley, depending on the type of Bradley, it can definitely get some damage in. Supports really doesn't add much. You got the Drok, you got the Nona, and a transport. That's about it. Helicopters-wise, at least we're getting some. So now we have options. And air power, you're finally getting some additional aircraft. No longer just the Su-25SM ground attacker, but we're also getting access to the Su-57, which is a very good fighter. We got the Su-35S, the S-30M, sorry, the Su-30SM, which is capable of going with some serious ordnance in the form of a low drag bomb with 1500 kilograms. You're getting some damage in. Alternatively, if we go armor, you're getting a lot of ground power, that's for sure. You're getting the T-90M Recon. Infantry-wise, you're getting some additional capabilities, such as the Ingenierie, which are pretty good. They're pretty sturdy infantry, and depending on how you kit them out, they can definitely get some work done that maybe some of the other infantry doesn't really do. Vehicles-wise, you're getting the Armata, you're getting the BMP-T Terminator 2, you're getting the T-90s. So if you want to be a powerhouse when it comes to ground-on-ground warfare, this might be a good combination for you. Supports, you're getting some additional arty, And you're getting the Buratino. This is going to be an interesting weapon to use if you want to clear out a town and then rush in with your own infantry. And seeing as you have quite a lot of infantry, this could be an interesting addition. Unfortunately, your helicopter tab is once again empty, and your air tab is also empty. You have no air power. I consider that to be a risk, because if I don't have air power, it's going to be very dangerous for me to be able to shoot down enemy aircraft, as I'm only going to have to rely upon the Buk or the S-300s. And yes, you also get the Tor. But I have not really a lot of fighter capability to intercept the enemy, nor do I have a lot of points available. So what about motorized infantry? Well, Recon, you're getting quite a few options that we didn't have. The Spetsnaz GRU, for example, can be loaded out with either full AA, full AT, or both. In which case, they will have fewer ammunition available, but at least they can do everything. That's something we couldn't do before. BRDM-3 is nice and fast. You're also getting a drone, and you're getting the UAZ Kozlek. I don't think I've ever used these things, but hey, you got a fast mobile anti-tank launcher. Maybe you can make these things work, although range? Yeah. Infantry-wise, again, we're not really getting that many more different options from the motorized deck. Because we already had AA, Motorstroke Igloo, we already had the Coronet / the HGM here. We can upgrade that to the Victoria. It's never going to be a great missile. The Coronet is definitely better. As for the rest, the Metis is something we do not have. And they're quite good. They got a heavy machine gun and they got a Metis launcher ×2, so it can pretty quickly start decimating enemy vehicles. As for the SSO, these guys are an interesting bunch. They have the capability of going close quarters, including flashbangs and the Boer, which is a thermobaric weapon. Can be used against vehicles, infantry, and helos. And if you want to go standoff, you're not going to be getting that, but you will be getting a sniper rifle. And you're getting the the RSHG-1, which is another thermobaric weapon. That's a capability we didn't really have. Vehicles, you're not getting much. You're getting BTR-82 and the Boomerang. Boomerang is pretty good, especially upgraded. You can really make this thing quite punchy. It'll not really survive for very long, but maybe the BMPs can hold the line there. Supports does add the Smerch. It does add the OSA. It adds the S-300, the Tochka U. The Tochka U is a very long-range ballistic missile, 6,000 meter range, capable of launching either HE or cluster. Helos, we're finally getting some. And I do consider this very important. You're just going to be able to either quickly drop off infantry, or quickly bring in units that can stop a break in your lines. Either with AT missiles, with potentially a mix of AT and rocket pods, or AT and AA. And you don't really have that capability if you don't have helicopters. Aircraft, it's a little better. I'd say it's still not optimal, because I would like to have more choice. So if we're not picking that, then that leaves us with the coastal troops, aka the Marines of sorts. And I think this might be a pretty decent option, because we're getting some Morskaya Razvedka. These are pretty similar to our Razvedka. We're also getting the PDSS. These guys come with grenade launchers, or grenade launchers or ADS rifles. Spetsnaz VMF is pretty similar to our Snipery, although these guys are in a bit more direct assault role, unless you put them in a fire support role, in which case they do get a very potent set of sniper rifles. So these guys can do both scouting and keep the enemy suppressed. Much better, I'd say, than the Snipery, because this is just a two-man squad. These are your passive spotters. These could be actual, maybe town fighters to start eliminating enemy infantry from afar. Infantry-wise, you're looking at the SPG-9, which is a capability we didn't really have. It is an anti-tank / anti-infantry capable unit, and with that, you can multi-roll. So you don't fully have to rely upon the Vampire. The Vampire only has a range of 600. These guys have a range of up to 1,000, so almost double. Vehicles, we're getting the T-80BV. Does that add a whole lot? I'd say not really. So in that case, it's not that useful. The BMOP Toros is something that I think is interesting, but I've never really made it work. Because it only has 30 millimeters of frontal armor, unless you up armor it, in which case it gets a minimum amount of side armor. These things just die very quickly. You can load them out with an AA set, a 57 millimeter. You can load them out with the 2A42 and an AG-17, so that's a grenade launcher or a Coronet. This is going to give them more punching power, but it doesn't fix the issue that they die so fast. Supports then. You're getting Brusa, you're also getting the Iskander. This is a nice option for dealing ballistic missile damage, and again, ballistic missiles, either standard ballisticals, cruise missiles, or 4 cruise missiles, making them pretty expensive, but also potentially very dangerous to the enemy concentrations. Helos, at least we're getting some, and air power, I'd say we're getting a decent mix. You're getting the capability finally to drop off things from the sky, you're getting the capability of bringing cruise missiles to the battle, and the Tu-22 is capable of doing, well, whatever the heck you want with it. It is a very flexible fuselage. You're going to be capable of either throwing out cruise missiles, smart bombs, high-end bombs, medium bombs, loads and loads of bombs, cluster bombs, whatever type of bomb you want. So, given that, I think maybe this is the best option. So we're going to go Russian amphib / mechanized. Okay, then how do I load it out? Or rather, and this is specifically for me, how would I load it out? Not necessarily how you would load it out, because playstyles are very much individual preference. I typically start with snipers, because I want to have the capability of spotting things behind enemy lines. They're not actively going to be shooting, so I don't care about an anti-materiel rifle. I just want to have them be available as a spotter, and they're going to be going in on foot. So let's set that up. I only have 1,000 points, which isn't that much. I want to have the capability of going after the enemy actively, and that's probably going to be done by the Razvedka. Why not Spetsnaz VMF? Because these guys are cheaper. These guys are 80 points, they're only 6-man versus 5-man, so you're paying quite a lot extra for that extra capability and that extra men. The PDSS I find to be too fragile with their 4-man group. They are pretty damn sneaky, a stealth of 3. Razvedka got a 2.5, and the Spetsnaz also got a 2.5. So these are far more sneaky, much more in line with snipers. We already got a passive spotter, so I don't need the sniper, or I don't need the PDSS. These guys, 5-man squad with an RPG, and that's something that Razvedka also get, but this is the RPG-26, this is your RPG-27, and you get only 3 of them. So you don't get a whole lot of firepower, but if you do get a hit, you'll make a dent in the enemy. These guys are going to be getting the RPG-26. You're again getting 3 shots. It is not as deadly. This is 450mm heat. This is 650mm heat. So I'll take those. These are going to be my more active spotters. I don't care about a transport yet, because I can still grab that from the infantry tab. The rest, how about using a vehicle? The BRM-1K is capable. Especially, I have found if it comes in with either a 30mm gun or... yeah, sorry, it is a 30mm. I was thinking of another vehicle. This thing is pretty capable. It's also pretty annoying if you up-armor it. And I have had it happen that one of these things, I think it was a slightly different BRM-1K, it was a BRM-1K-57, made it behind my lines and started eliminating helicopters. That was sloppy play by me, but also a very useful unit on the enemy team. These are going to be capable of laying down some fire support. You can, however, make the case, well, I don't need that. I got vehicles of my own. I got infantry transports. I got BMPs. Why would I bring another reconnaissance vehicle? Yeah, that's fair. If this thing doesn't work for you, then by all means, just pick something else. As for the 1V14, I don't really care for this thing. Yes, you're getting some pretty good optics at 2400, but why? Because you can't actually shoot it, so it's just a passive spotter. If I'm going to have a passive spotter, which is not even that stealthy, why would I not bring a sniper team? Their capabilities, recon-wise, aren't as good, sure. But their stealth is, so I can definitely get closer to the enemy. Much closer than this thing can. I, for one, don't really see the role of this vehicle. But if you do, then by all means, let me know down below in the comments. I'm going to try and make this fairly easy. I want to have a couple of these things. I want to have a couple of these. And maybe some Spetsnaz VMF to just harass things behind enemy lines. I'm going to say fire support. Oh, sorry, not behind enemy lines. Actually, front line. And I want to have these things just come in on foot. 980 points. That's fine for now. Infantry. You have quite a few options, especially as you're getting infantry from both the mechanized section and from the amphib. So... what do we need? Well, we're going to have a little bit of double capability here. For example, the Pulamachiki, These guys have anti-tank weaponry. They also got a couple of heavy machine guns. You can load them up with the PKP or the Cord. In this case, they're going to be more infantry suppressor capability. You could argue we already have that in the form of the Motostrelki AGS. These are, however, different because they don't actually get a rocket launcher, so they're pretty vulnerable when it comes to dealing with a vehicle. That is a vehicle of, let's say, a more up-armored vehicle. Standard vehicles can definitely take a hit from these things, and I have seen them actually kill lighter vehicles, such as Humvees. As for Motostrelki versus Morskaya, these guys are fairly similar, but again, it's the RPG 26 or 27, and I find that to be rather important. I'm going to bring these things in with the BMP-3F, actually. Let's get a couple of those. These are going to be my main line infantry, because they can do a bit of everything. They got an assault rifle, they got a grenade launcher, they got a machine gun on them, and they got some anti-tank capability. And with the BMP-3F, have I no customization options on this thing? There. I'm going to go with the different gun, which is the Sodoma, which gives them slightly better capabilities. Unfortunately, you can't really compare that, but we've got an effective range of 1200. That boosts to 1300. You're getting damage 10 versus damage 10, so that doesn't improve. 100mm heat. And this is... Ah, they're not that different. My bad. We're also getting... Oh, you're getting a lead pursuit missile, which this thing... Never mind. I don't think they're that different. Protection system. You can go with a Stora, which is an ECM system, and that's a hefty one for 10 points. You're getting 30% countermeasures. So your ability to deflect missiles is pretty potent. And I think that can keep these vehicles alive a little longer. Keep in mind, they are just BMPs. So in the sense that they're defensive, or their armor, it's never going to be very good. But these things do have that ECM, they do have 2 smokes, and they're amphibious. So they're going to be capable of at least popping up on the enemy's flank where they might not expect them. I'm going to be bringing 4. They got 7 seats, so keep that in mind, 7 seats. That means the Morskaya can seat them. The Cherny over here, they can't, because we need a 14-man vehicle for them. And you really only got one option with that. It's the BT-3F. All the other vehicles, they simply don't have enough seats. It's unfortunate, but we do have another option, and that comes in the helicopter tab. In the helicopter tab, I think these things can seat 16, so you can also use these to transport your infantry. And the Mi-38T, if you're feeling brave, can also do it, but it's unarmed. So keep that in mind. It's also a massive target. At least this thing has some stealth and some pretty decent speed. This thing has more speed but no stealth, and it's an enormous target. Anyway, line infantry, check. I'm gonna get a couple of high-end infantry in the form of the Cherny. These guys have the capability of going after medium anti-tank or heavy anti-tank. I prefer heavy, because the RPG-28 is going to be going through 900mm of armor. That is a lot of punching power, and if you can ambush an Abrams like that, you can definitely get some value out of it. So let's go with those. I'm going to say I do want them in the BT-3F, so that I don't have to fly them in. This is not a particularly good vehicle, because it's fairly slow for my taste. But you can make it slightly better if you add an autocannon and some ERA. It's very heavily protected for a vehicle of this type. And it kind of becomes a mini APC, which is also amphibious. Sorry, rather a mini IFV, I should say, not an APC. Because it started out as an APC. Considering how expensive the infantry is, I want to have the capability of bringing them. I'm going to say I want to have one of those vehicles. If I want to bring 2, I'll just have to make sure that a helicopter is available as a safe transport option. If I get points spent, or if I have points left by the end, maybe I can get another one of those BT-3Fs. Gornostrelki I find to be a very good line holder, because they can do a bit of both. They got some snipers in order to deal with infantry, and you got the Metis, which can engage vehicles. So the Gornos are typically a unit that sort of supplements the Morskaya in the form of anti-tank, medium anti-tank capability, that is. I'm going to bring them in on foot for now. What else do we need? Igla / anti-air. You got options here. Sorry, you don't have options here. I was thinking they're the same as, but no, they're not. Sadly not. You do have an interesting transport option here in the form of the ZU-23. This basically means that for 130 points you're getting 2 anti-air units. And you can upgrade this thing to also have Iglas and a better gun. In which case for 170 points you're getting a bit more AA firepower. These guys can hold the line a little bit. They do have a medium machine gun. They got their AA capability with 6 missiles but only 1 launcher. And that is kind of supplemented by the Igla here and the GSK-30. The survivability on this thing is iffy, unless you go up armored, in which case you're still not really going to be that survivable. So in this case, if you want to bring your Motostrelki Igla with additional AA, you can. I, however, tend to vary a little bit, because you can also make the case, well, I already have AA here, right? So I do want to have a bit more ground capability. And for that, I'm going to go with, let's say, the BMP-1AM, which is going to give me a 30mm autocannon. I kind of prefer that over this gun. Mostly, it's a remnant from Wargame, because the BMP-1's gun, the 2A28, was just awful. In this game, I haven't really had enough time to test it. This is a bit less punchy, but it fires faster. You got a 50 to 100mm kinetic pen. This thing has a 400mm heat pen, which does mean if you shoot a tank into the side, it will hurt. As opposed to the BMP-1AM, which most likely will not go through. I'd say this is a bit more akin to dealing with enemy infantry. This is more likely to deal with enemy vehicles, which is a capability that my Motostrelki Igla lack. So let's bring those. And of course, you can also say, well, I'm going to bring the Morskaya into a BMP-1. I have enough seats. As for the rest, we need some medium to longer range AT. You got the option of going with the Fagot ATGM, which gives you 2 launchers, or the Concourse, which gives you 1. This will spit out more missiles faster, but you still got the same loadout, and you can upgrade them to the Victoria. The problem is 1300 meter range. The Concourse can get upgraded to the Concourse M with a range of 1600, making them slightly safer. But you only get 6 missiles and 1 launcher. So the problem becomes, do I want to have more launchers, but less damage? Because these things do 550 heat at less range. You will be in range of that tank's gun, most likely. Or do I want to stay outside of that range and have a heftier punch, but fire slower, and have fewer missiles? The choice is yours. Oh, one more notable fact. These guys are almost twice the size. It's a 7-man squad. These are a 4-man squad, which makes them a little bit less survivable. I'm going to go with more missiles. Also, with the thing in mind of APS, the enemy's active protection system will neutralize most likely 1 or 2 missiles. And with the double launcher capability that I have over here, I'll be able to overwhelm that faster. So I'm going to go with these. They might not have the highest punch, but that's fine. I have options. Now at this point I got 4, I'm not going to count these because they got their own transport. I got 4, 8, 10, 12 units of infantry and effectively 6 transports, which I think is fine. I'm not likely to call them all in at the same time. At this point I only really have used a little over half of the capabilities, so I can bring a lot more infantry. And this is kind of where it's going to come down to personal preference. You can go a little bit harder on anti-tank capability with the RPG 29 Vampire. You can go with the recoilless rifle, which will give you attacks against vehicles and infantry. Or, this is 300mm heat, this is 75mm heat, but the damage here doubles, no, not doubles, goes from 7 to 7.5, but you got a blast radius here. So this is very useful in dealing with enemy infantry. This is more against vehicles. The Vampire is just a purebred, I'm going to kill your vehicle, but it does not shoot infantry. So if you find your deck a little lacking in anti-infantry options, you can go with the Sapog 9. Oh, sorry, the SPG 9 if you want to have more AT capability. And you're thinking, well, my town is my home, I'm going to live here now, and any armored vehicle that drives through is going to be dead. You need the Vampire. As for the Oknemechiki, I don't have a whole lot of experience with these things, so I can't really speak to their capabilities. They are capable of going after infantry and vehicles and helicopters, which is useful, but helicopter range is 400. Yeah. I have Iglas if I want to deal with helicopters. Helicopters are going to be a bonus, so I'm mostly looking at what do they do against infantry. Well, they are incendiary, so they will definitely leave a hefty dent in your infantry. Aim time 1.2 seconds. 1 second for 1.2? No, 1 to 2 seconds. 1 second for this. Magazine size 30. No, never mind. I don't know about these guys. I can't speak to them. Standard motor Strelky. You can bring these in fairly cheaply. Especially if you're also bringing in a BMP-1. And in some decks, that is, I was playing American. I think I was playing American Striker Special Forces. I simply did not have enough AT capability at short range. Not enough anti-tank short range, so RPGs really. If you would have rushed me with a bunch of BMPs, you probably would have pushed me out real quick. So in this case, you can add a whole bunch of these. And just basically brunt force your way through. You don't really need an upgrade for this thing. You don't really need a different loadout for this BMP. And you can put quite a lot of firepower onto the field pretty fast. You got no customization options for the Motor Strelky, so that's easy. Regarding the Pulamachiki, these are capable of defending themselves against vehicles somewhat, but not very well. And you can also go with the PKP, in which case they get 3 machine guns versus 2 heavy machine guns. I do like these heavies. Especially if you catch infantry out in the open, these will definitely do some damage. For me, I'm going to say I will not likely bring in 8 BMPs. How can I make my toolkit more diverse? Let's bring more Iglas. I'm always looking to see what sort of capability I don't really have enough of. Maybe some grenade launchers to deal with enemy infantry a little better. And when it comes to vehicles, I got the BMP-1 here, the same BMP-1 here, so I don't have to wonder, oh crap, this is the BMP-1P. I want to call in vehicles, I want to call in infantry in vehicles quickly. I don't have to pick and choose which BMP to pick. If you are more experienced in the game, maybe you have the, let's say, mental bandwidth to do that. And you'll be able to go, oh, okay, in this case, I actually want one which has a grenade launcher. Or I want one which has an anti-tank missile launcher on top of it. Or the 30mm cannon. For me, I'm going to keep it easy for now because I don't have a whole lot of experience with this deck. Let's get a couple of grenade launchers in. I'm going to go with the BMP-3. And I can get the Epoca module on it. Which is something that you cannot do with this. So this is going to be a slightly... Hold on, I set the BMP-3, I think. Here. This is a slightly different loadout. You're getting a 57mm gun. This thing is getting a 100mm gun. Slightly different capability. This is more likely to deal with enemy infantry faster. And you can also target helicopters with it. The BMP-3F cannot do that. At least not with the 100mm, but with 30mm you can target helos. Although your range will not likely be as good. I got 1,000 here. I got 1,000 here too. Never mind, it's the same. Armor. Let's up armor it to 120. Keep in mind, I can also bring these for other infantry. So I have, let's say, a cheap vehicle, the BMP-1. If you want to make it easier, by the way, you can just say I'm going to bring these guys on foot and just attach the 2 more there. I have my transport for loads of infantry. And keep in mind, 14 seats means you can just also bring in 2 squads of 7 in one vehicle. Although it means less fire support and more eggs in one basket. BMP-3F is there in order to provide fire support. You can up armor it to the Sodoma, but as mentioned, doesn't really do that much. This thing has ECM. This thing does not. Very important distinction. This thing does not have ECM. It does, however, have a lot more protection against heat. You're looking at 400mm versus 100. So if you have a bit more of a frontline role for it, arguably these things are slightly better, at least when you're dealing with heat. These things are better when you're dealing with missiles, because you'll be able to at least deflect some missiles. And of course you got amphib capability, which these things... Oh, actually, these things also get amphib. Alright, vehicles. Some interesting options here. I'm going to say the mainstay of this deck is going to be that expensive T-72B3. And I'm going to upgrade that as much as I can. The T-80BV is close. You're getting a little bit more armor, but you're not getting APS, which can save your life. Without that, the tank is a bit heavily protected, but it'll very quickly start to melt if you're getting a lot of anti-tank missiles thrown in your face. And therein lies the problem. Also, this thing I think has a slightly better gun. 425, 680. 425, 680. What about your heat? You're getting 750. You're getting also 750. You're getting the Invar. You're also getting the Invar. I'm not sure exactly why this is a slightly different gun. It does have a higher number. Looks the same to me. I'm going to say this is going to be the mainstay, so these are the heaviest vehicles. I also want to have a couple of cheaper backups. And these things don't really need to do a whole lot for me. But they can be useful if you want to swarm a position. Especially against infantry that doesn't have a lot of anti-tank. These things are annoying. Because they've still got a pretty hefty amount of armor. They got a gun, they got some contact 1. You can upgrade to contact 5 if you wish, which makes them even harder to kill. And that means for 600 points, I can get some pretty annoying tanks to get rid of. If you want to make them go faster, you can get an upgraded engine. It doesn't really move the needle. Like 55 off-road speed versus what? 45? Yeah, it's fine. I'm going to take these. You also got the UR-77 Meteorite. I haven't used these things before, so I can't really speak to what they do. They are an MLRS with an effective range of 250 to 800, so a bit more... a bit less actually than a mortar. You're getting some heat damage, and you're getting a pretty hefty blast radius. So with this, potentially you can wipe out some infantry positions. Keep in mind though, they are very fragile unless you give them cage armor. I'm going to bring one just to test it out. As for the rest, you also got that assault gun that I mentioned before. I don't know how to use it, so I'm not going to touch it. You got the Sturm S. These things with the Sturm SM, aka the Attacker, they're pretty good. They are pretty good. They can go through 950 millimeters of heat, which will mean that for 60 points you might have the capabilities of destroying an Abrams. Good stuff. What else do we got? We got a PT-76B. The more you add to your toolkit, the more difficult it might be to pick what you want to bring. And therein lies the challenge. Because in this case, I can say, I want to have something that can mostly do tank on tank. I want to have a bunch of cheaper tanks. I want to have something that can blow up infantry from afar. And I want to have something that can destroy tanks from afar. What is the PT-76B really going to offer me? That depends on how you load it out. You can load it out with the 2A42, but I currently have that capability. You can get a 57mm gun on it, but you're still not very well protected. You are amphibious. That can help. And for the engine, well, you can make it slightly faster. It's hardly recognizable as a PT-76 in this case. I, for one, don't really find a use for these. So I'm just going to add a few more tanks. And seeing as I have some additional slots, maybe just one T-80BV. Yeah, you're never getting APs. You're never getting a trophy system or something like that. So we have no APS, unfortunately. This is mostly to round out this vehicle section. If you want to, you can just go, it's fine, I'll just bring additional Sturms. Up to you. Alright, supports. I prefer to start with supply vehicles. You have a few different options. You got the MT-LBVM, which is also amphib, and you can throw it out of a plane. It is never going to be very well protected, but then again, it's only there to transport supplies. It doesn't need to do a whole lot. They're nice and cheap. Let's bring 3 or 4, because I might need to supply some infantry. Then we got the PTS-4 Duplo. This thing is capable of doing 12,000 points of supplies. Again, amphib. You have a little bit of armor. They stick out like a sore thumb, and because they carry so much supplies, I'd say they're a pretty high value target. Unfortunately, you don't really have that many other options for transporting loads of supplies. And you do have a lot of slots in support, so you can fit 1 or 2 of these things in. They can also seat 28 units of infantry, so you can, if you wish to, use these to transport the Cherny Beretti, which are really limited in transport capability. We got that transport that they come with, or we're going to have to bring a helicopter. Next, I want to have some AA. I want to have an AA weapon system at shorter range, which gives you access to Tunguska, Strela, and Berjusa. The rest of them are just arty. Oh, sorry, did I forget the Deva? No, Deva's a mortar. Berjusa, capable with radar. You can also get them radar and Igla. And with this, you're getting an okay amount of range. against helos and aircraft. I am mostly looking for something that can shoot at an enemy helicopter. That is not terribly expensive, so I might go with just this loadout. The Tunguska is almost twice as expensive. It is also, depending on how you set it up, targetable by radar. Same as the Bryusa. If you don't activate the radar, it's fine. If you do activate the radar, you're getting 1.25 the range for low altitude, so helicopters and lower flying aircraft, or ×2 against planes. But you're becoming susceptible to being targeted by seed. Buyer beware. Tunguska has the same problem, but the Tunguska can be upgraded to either Tunguska M1 or the Panzer. The Panzer gives you some pretty nice missiles. 2400 meter range, low altitude, which again can be boosted, and 1800 meter range, high altitude, but you're paying 225, which means you can get almost 3 Bryusas for 1 Panzer. I can cover a wider area of ground against helicopters, and that's what I want. The Strela is also very capable with either Luchnik, which gives you the better Igla missile, or the Sosna. It has radar, sorry, it does not have radar, so it cannot be targeted. It's still got that it's got that decent range. And you even have a machine gun to defend yourself. But if something is targeting this, most likely it'll be dead before it can really fire that machine gun. Long range AA is what I need. I have access to the Tor M2 DT. I have access to the Buk M2 or the S300 Vityaz. Or the DT... oh, sorry, there's another Logi vehicle here. It's this big thing. 30,000 supplies. It cannot transport any infantry. I think they're too big for my taste. They're also too slow for my taste, so I'm not going to bring these. AA. The Tor. I quite like these because they have a very good rate of fire. And you can upgrade them to the Panzer as well, which gives them the same loadout as the Tunguska. So in that case, their capabilities are pretty similar, but the Tunguska is a bit more fragile. It's got 15mm on the front, 15mm on the side, which means that while it dies to infantry, it'll die to artillery just as fast. This thing is slightly heavier protected, so you might take a hit and still be able to scoot. The Buk, you got a couple of loadouts. You got the Buk M2 or M3. With M3, you're getting 6 missiles. With the other one, you're getting 4 missiles. Range 3000, range 3200, damage 19 or 20, so it doesn't matter that much. I'm going to bring the higher end Buk M3. I want to have that higher end anti-plane capability. This should cover my AA capability, especially as I also have some Iglas and I can still get a fighter. So now Arty. And again, this is where it becomes a lot of personal playstyle. Let's bring a fairly small artillery unit first. You can bring a Deva. This is the one that is able to shoot a couple of 82mm rounds. You can get the Vasilek, which I believe has a burst capability. Or you can get the Dilemma, which is basically the same vehicle but with a 120mm mortar. So a bit more punch. I want to bring 2 of these, allowing me to suppress enemy infantry from afar. And afar being 2000 meter range tops. But hey, they fire pretty quick. They don't have a whole lot of aim time. And that combination means that I can pretty quickly start suppressing enemy infantry, allowing my own to push up. Next up, a medium range Arty unit. You got quite a few options here. You got access to the A222 Bereg, which you can actually turn into a SPOG, a self-propelled anti-air gun. It's an interesting system, because it'll allow you to shoot at a low-flying aircraft at 2400 meter range, which means you can target a helicopter at good range. Some missiles might need to get closer than 2400 before the helo is able to launch them. It is, however, a massive target that has no armor. So, yes, it might work. Yes, you could use them, but I'm not sure if I can get a lot of results out of them. If you want to throw in this thing as a potential AA and use it as an artillery unit, which could be very valuable, keep in mind. This thing might be behind your lines, and who knows, maybe a Comanche or an Apache comes knocking. You can use your artillery most of the time, and if a helicopter comes close, you're still going to be able to shoot it down with that 130mm AA, if you get a chance. If they jump you, not as much. Oh, I forgot a mortar. You also got access to the Nona. Oh well. The Malka is another long-range option, 4300mm arty range. It is, however, not capable of defending itself, but it's got a 203mm versus 130, so your capabilities are different. You got 10 damage here, and for the Malka, you got 15 damage, so 50% more damage, higher blast radius. Finally, long-range missile launcher. I want to get the Iskander. How you can load these out? Well, choices. You got ballistics for 8,000 meter range and some pretty hefty blast range of 100. You got cruise missiles, same amount of blast radius, but 10,000 meter range. The heat capability is the same. They are interceptable. So keep in mind, if the enemy has, for example, a Patriot setup, they will be intercepted. Regarding the rest, I think the ballistic missile goes a little higher. And this thing ignores 50% of cover because it comes down pretty much on top of you, and the cruise missile does not. So if the enemy is in cover, this could be a nice option. The cruise missile 4 is simply doubling the cruise missile. I'm going to go with the ballistic missile. And let's bring 2 of those. Okay, helos. Time to transport some of those Nabiski Beretti. I'm going to do that with K-29. The K-29 is a scary helicopter. It can do quite a lot of things for you. Make sure you bring the autocannons. And when it comes to those pylons, you can either bring additional rockets or gun pods. I have seen these things nail helicopters in a hurry, and I think they use the gun pods to do that. These things are no joke. They will go toe-to-toe with an Apache and potentially win. Of course, it depends on the loadout of the Apache, but most of the time, well, you'll notice if you're taking fire from one of these. I'm going to bring one of those, because they can transport infantry, and they can bring over supplies if I want to, and they can serve as a gunship. So they can do all sorts of things for me. And then I want to have the Catran in there. The Catran comes with an autocannon already. I can load it out with a couple of high-end S-13 rockets, which means you got a 130mm rocket against infantry or vehicles, or just general 30mm rockets. Outer pylons, loads of options. You can even turn this thing into an anti-radiation bird, so it'll target anti-air systems which have their radar activated. You can go with the Attacker, turning it into an anti-tank unit. You can go with the Hermes, allowing, again, anti-tank capability, but even better. This thing has top attack, 1000mm rounds of, or 1000 millimeters of heat. This thing is a direct attacker, so it goes for frontal armor or side armor. This thing goes for the top. And you also got the KH-35U, which basically sports a couple of cruise missiles on this bird. I think that's a weird capability, because I don't really need my helicopter to be able to shoot things from 6,000 meters out, in the best case. Also, these things are interceptable. I'm going to go with a fairly, at least in my case, vanilla loadout, and say I want to have them with anti-tank capability. As for air, well, what do we need? What do we not have? I do have the capability of intercepting a fighter or another aircraft with the Book. I have the capability of hitting potentially fairly large weapon systems or groups of concentrations with the Iskander. I have the capability of suppressing infantry with the Dilemma Mortar. What is a capability that I might need? Well, I don't really have airdrop yet. I have that helicopter which can airdrop. I want to have these things in, the AN-72P. You can load them out with additional weapons, if they live long enough, which is questionable. Keep in mind, these things can also airdrop supplies, which is very useful. As for additional capabilities, I like to have a cruise missile boss, and the Tu-42 is good enough for that. It brings 8 cruise missiles, and if you fire those in fairly quick succession, you'll probably be able to overwhelm enemy anti-air systems. So let's bring one of those, giving me about 1,000 points. I still want to have a fighter. I typically open with a fighter to make sure that the enemy doesn't have a whole lot of capability of dealing with my potentially helicopter opener, although for this one that's not as likely. But hey, it's a team game. I might need to cover my allies. So in this case, let's see, we got a 15% decoy, or sorry, 15 times decoy flyer. We got 10% ECM. The S-27SM has 15. You are not getting ECM unless I give it to you, in which case you're getting 10. I'll take this one as the fighter. I'm going to take a couple of, what are these? Lead pursuit missile, 5,000 meter range. I'd much rather prefer a little better range. So that's the fuselage, medium range AA. I'm going to say short range or semi-active. That is the R70, the R27. So we got out to 7,000, out to 5,000. Middle pylons, you can get them with a couple of infrareds. These are capable of targeting aircraft and helicopters alike. These are unfortunately only targeting aircraft, but they're fire and forget. Which means that if the plane dies, you don't have to worry about the missiles. Which is nice. Can I get more of those? Sadly not. I would like to get a couple more of those. Oh, actually I do. No, that's the ER. That's these things, 5,000 meter range. But that means I don't have that 7,000 meter range capability. Choices, choices. Okay, let's get one of these. I'm going to bring one fighter. 500 points left. You can go with a couple of different options. You can go with a cheap bomber in the form of the Yak-38. With this thing, you can fly it in with gun pods, and you can use it as a helo hunter. It's going to be an expensive helo hunter, though. 205 points means that if you kill the helicopter, yes, you'll probably get some effect out of it. The problem I see is that you need a little bit of time to fire these things. And I got just all the same missiles. You can make them even cheaper, by the way, for 185. And you can fly in low, hunt down a helicopter that's annoying you, and eliminate it, and hope that you survive. If not, well, it's 185 points. If you did well enough, you'll be able to get rid of that enemy helicopter. Alternatively, you can load it out as a bomber. In which case, you're looking for high drag bombs, which means that you can fly in low, do a bombing run, and don't have to worry about enemy anti-air systems as much. You're not invulnerable to them. You're not invulnerable to them. You're still vulnerable on your way out most of the time. With these, I'm getting some high drag bombs so I can suppress enemy infantry, and I can even burn things with these napalm bombs. That's an option. You can go with the Tu-22M3, which you can get with smart bombs or cluster bombs. I typically don't like these bomb loadouts, because in my case, most of the time the aircraft don't survive long enough. If you want to have a slightly cheaper cruise missile bus, you can... Actually, these are different cruise missiles. 10,000 meter range. They're interceptable, of course. These things are cruise missiles. Let me compare that for a second. I think these cruise missiles are fairly comparable, but the damage on the 32 is higher. You're getting 40. Your blast radius is 70 versus 100. You're getting more dispersion, so it isn't as accurate, but you're getting more heat. But I get 8 cruise missiles, so I can overwhelm the enemy's air defenses. And these things only get 3, unless you choose to load it out with additional cruise missiles, which you cannot do. I'm not going to bring this. The Su-33, you can use these as a bit of a multi-role, as I explained before. They are more geared towards air combat and bombing runs. And of course you also have access to the trusty Su-25SM. I find these to be pretty damn survivable, because they got 20 armor. Or sorry, 20 hit points, which some of these aircraft also have. But the Su-25 also has some armor. So it'll be able to take a hit and potentially keep going, whereas others can't. Inner fuel tank or inner pylons, I'm not going to go with fuel tanks because they typically don't need that much. I'm going to say anti-radiation missiles. This is going to be a sort of seed multi-role aircraft. Middle pylons. I want the capability of going for tanks. Ka-25ML. Lead pursuit missile. High amount of pen. And that means I can start eliminating tanks. They're also laser guided if you wish to. Outer pylons. What do we have? Again, the same capabilities. You can also load them up with S-25 rockets. That is a massive rocket. It's a 340mm rocket, which will do lots of damage against infantry and vehicles. It might damage a tank if you're getting a good hit on it. And then for the wingtips, I'm going to go ECM pods. This thing will have no AA capability. That airspace is going to have to get secured by that Su-27. I'm going to kick out this Yak. I don't feel like I need it. I am 110 points under. Where am I going to spend 110 points? That's going to be tricky. Can I get a very cheap yak? Can I still get a Helo Hunter potentially? No, not there. No, I'm 75 points over now. So in that case, maybe I can make this thing slightly cheaper. I really don't see the point of having just one T80 BV. If I push these to 4, we're getting, yeah, we're getting closer. I can get another one of these. If I don't up armor it, and I just push another one, I'm getting 99.75. That's okay, it's good enough. So this is USSR or Russia mech / amphib, or mech marines, if you will. I feel like with this, I can probably make things happen. I have anti-tank with either my own tanks. I can push infantry out of the way. I have my own infantry to swarm cities. I have my own BMPs to swarm enemy vehicles. I have reconnaissance. The only recon I do not have is airborne. And that is a potential weakness. You don't have a drone. You don't have a very good recon helicopter. This thing, however, can work as a recon helicopter. Keep in mind, it is capable of deflecting some ECM or deflecting some missiles, but it's not perfect. So use it sparingly as a recon bird, but it can do it. So that was the end of a long video on this mech / marines deck. Let me know what your thoughts are. This deck is most likely going to work for me. It might not work for you. Your own playstyle will probably differ. I hope that you did find the video useful. Let me know what your thoughts are down below in the comments, and I shall see you soon for more Broken Arrow.